Mr. Gagliardi, would you speak to that, please?
Sure. So the process that was described, and I'm going to go over it in a second, is a process that I have seen play out as far as acting superintendents dozens of times in the course of my career, and I've represented school districts for about 30 years. There is nothing unusual about the process that I'm going to describe in a moment, and in the course of those 30 years, it's really only been a matter of intrigue and dialogue here in Monroe Township. Draw whatever conclusions from that you wish. So it is incorrect to say that the individual serving as acting superintendent now is not certified. She is certified. She is, like all of the educators you have in the district. She did not have a standard certification to serve as a chief school administrator. And the odd catch-22 there is that in order to have a standard certification, you have to be in the position and be mentored, right? So you have to be in the position in order to get it, but you have to get it in order to be in the position. That's sort of the catch-22, which is why you have what is otherwise a fairly routine process set up, so that in order to fill the position, it would have to be someone who is an assistant superintendent or someone who has previously served as a superintendent. So you literally had one person in the district, based on that criteria, who would be eligible. It's the gentleman sitting to my left, who probably enhances his credentials by pointing out that he wasn't interested in serving in the position. So that would leave anyone else within the district, if the board in its discretion wanted to promote continuity, promote from within, the person would have to be named with a substandard certificate. Nothing wrong with their certificate, they just don't have the permanent certificate to be a chief school administrator, which necessitates the use of the administrative code position provision that, sir, you correctly described. So that the Commissioner of Education and the county office have two roles. The first, which we didn't talk about, but which probably didn't exist, I don't know when you were on the board, sir, is the process of approving the contract, right? They have to bless the compensation of the person who sits as the chief school administrator, just as they do for business administrator. That's been in the law for, I think, a little less than 10 years. And then there's the process by which the Commissioner of Education has to sign off on someone who does not have that permanent certificate. In my 30 years, this is really the only time it's been the subject of delay and dialogue, centering around, as I understand it, an error in a yearbook that the candidate had nothing to do with, and asked that it be corrected, and it simply wasn't. And this was the source of great drama, but ultimately ended in a process where the commissioner did, which in my experience the commissioner has always done, which is allowed a Board of Education to name someone to the position if they don't have the standard certificate, as long as they are in the process of looking for someone, either another interim or a permanent, who has a standard certificate, and that's what the board is in the process of doing. And I assure you that explaining the circumstance of the typo in the yearbook and identifying in writing for the Department of Education that the board was going to go through a selection process looking for someone with a standard certificate was the only information presented to Trenton that led to the result that in my career it always leads to, which is allowing the board in its discretion to name the person that they think best for the position, as long as they are proceeding to look for someone with that certificate. So the idea that the person didn't have the certificate and it required this process in a vacuum seems to have a great deal of intrigue around it. But in reality, it's standard fare, and not quite standard in Monroe, but I assure you a process that districts throughout the state follow on a regular basis. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Oh, that's not allowed.
I would also like to point out